Hello and welcome to another Civ Leader rating. I'm Dame Offensive. Today we're going to be discussing Ambiorix of Gaul. His leader ability is King of the Uberund. Culture is generated when he creates non-civilian units, and his units gain extra combat strength for adjacent units. Gaul's Civ ability is Heilstadt Culture. Mines gain culture, trigger culture bombs, and provide minor adjacency to districts. And specialty districts can't be built next to the city center. Gaul's unique unit is the Geisite. It gets extra combat strength against stronger units and against districts, but it comes at a higher cost. The unique district is the Oppidum, which replaces the industrial zone, is cheaper, comes earlier, gets a ranged strike, and unlocks apprenticeship the first time it's built. It gets a major adjacency from strategic resources and quarries. The rating system I use is pretty simple. 10 is very good, 5 or 6 is about average, and 1 means a Civ is very bad at using a feature. First rating up is the Science Victory. In terms of science generation, Ambiorix gets a 7. He is going to spawn with a lot of hills, and that usually means mountains, so he should be able to get some fairly decent campus adjacencies, especially if you build mines around those campuses. Next is production generation. Here, he's going to get a 10. The Oppidum is super strong, and he's going to want mines everywhere, so he's really a top-tier production Civ. In terms of additional abilities towards a Science Victory, he's going to get a 10. His mines providing culture means that you don't have to spend district slots on theater squares. And the range strike on the Oppidum means that you can save some encampment districts for later in your game. Average those out and his Science Victory capacity is a 9. Next up is culture. In terms of culture generation, Ambiorix gets a 10. Being able to generate culture from mines is great. He's going to get culture from producing units as well. In terms of faith generation, I'm going to give him a 7 for similar reasons as the science generation, because he should spawn near hills and he can put mines around his holy sites to get really good adjacency. In terms of additional abilities towards a culture victory, I'm going to give him a 10. He is going to be able to produce wonders very quickly. If he can get up the science tree fast, then he can focus on more of a science type culture victory and doesn't have to worry a lot about going up the culture line as fast as some other civs. Average out his culture scores and he gets a culture victory capacity of 9. On to religious victory. In terms of religious establishment, I think here Ambiorix gets a 5. He doesn't really have anything particularly special towards establishment, so we'll keep him about average here. In terms of faith generation, we talked about that earlier, he's going to get a 7. Additional abilities towards a religious victory, I'm going to give him an 8 because he does get pretty good culture generation that can help him go up the culture tree a bit faster. Average his religious scores out and he gets a religious victory capacity of 6.7. Next is diplomatic victory. In terms of generating diplomatic favor, I'm going to give Ambiorix a 5. He doesn't really have anything special towards that. In terms of culture generation, we talked about that before. That's going to be a 10. In terms of additional abilities towards a diplomatic victory, I'm going to give him a 6 because he is going to generate a lot of industrial zones, or his Oppidums, which will unlock the carbon recapture project later in the game. But I think that project comes late enough that you've probably lost a lot of diplomatic favor from something like coal mines. Not necessarily, but it comes pretty late, so I don't think that's a good enough bonus to bump him higher than 6. Average his scores out and he gets a diplomatic victory capacity of 7. On to Domination Victory. In terms of combat bonuses, Ambiorix is going to get a 10. Having that extra combat bonus for units next to each other is so strong, and you're very rarely going to send units alone. In terms of unit relevance and timing, I'm going to give him a 7. The extra combat bonuses helps keep any unit relevant longer, and his starting unit is pretty good for getting an early attack going. In terms of additional abilities towards a domination victory, he's going to get a 10. Being able to get culture from his mines means that he can produce units really fast and go up the culture tree without sacrificing a potential encampment district slot. Average the scores out and he gets a domination victory capacity score of 9, which means he gets a 9 for 3 different victory types: science, culture, and domination. In terms of versatility, we're going to start out with an average of his scores, and here Ambiorix gets an 8.1. Next is reasonable alternatives, and here I mean, does he have other reasonable options for victory? And here he's going to get a 10, because he has 3 good victory types that can all follow similar trajectories. In terms of ease of change, the ability to switch from one victory type to another seamlessly, he's going to get a 10. He can really have a very similar build whether he's going for science, culture, or domination, because those oppidums are so strong and he is going to have to focus on science a little bit. Average his versatility scores out and he gets a 9.4. Additional notes about Ambiorix: his terrain spawn is hills, which is so good for production. Usually comes with mountains, which is really good for adjacencies. In terms of game modes, nothing really stands out to me because he's so strong, he can make any of them work really well for him. For city-state interactions, he's probably going to want to focus on military and industrial city-states since he is going to have a lot of oppidums, and getting the extra production is really good for whatever you're going for. In terms of wonders, I feel like Ruhr Valley is an obvious choice. He's going to want mines everywhere, so getting something that boosts mines seems like a no-brainer. I think the Biosphère works really well for him too. If you get a strong science game, that's going to give him a good culture victory if you're going that route, or it provides a lot of power for the science victory. In terms of other civs to look out for, you want to be careful of anybody expanding too quickly, because your bonuses stem from having a lot of land since you can't place everything near your city. So if you're next to Peter, that could maybe be a problem. So summary of Ambiorix, I think he's super strong. He can really go any direction, but start out the same way. Focus quite a bit on science and production, and then you'll be able to go up domination, science, or culture. He does have a little bit of a rough situation if space is limited and he can't place his districts, but I think it's manageable. Based on his bonuses and his ability to just work up to victory with very little specialization, means I think he would make a good recommendation for new players. So that's my rating of Ambiorix of Gaul. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, feel free to comment. I'm open to hearing your thoughts on this. And if you haven't done so, go ahead and subscribe. You know how YouTube works. Goodbye.